Today is going to be amazing, and I'm so thankful you're joining us because today on the podcast, we have Mimi Striplin of the Tiny Tassel and Parfaire Consulting and probably 5 more things soon enough. She is driven by her passion to build businesses and a life centered around joy. She empowers female entrepreneurs to achieve their dreams professionally and personally. And entrepreneurship can yield success while business owners find joy and rest. And Mimi's business approach is the perfect testimonial to that. Her 15 years of retail expertise and 8 years of entrepreneurial experience have produced 2 successful businesses. She built these brands into retail brick and mortar businesses in downtown Charleston, of all places. Not an easy market all the time. Always cool new things coming up down there. She founded the Tiny Tassel, creating the namesake accessory in just one color in 2015 and has surpassed the 7-figure mark, all while finding joy in her work. And I'm wearing some of them today.
And you look beautiful.
Oh, thanks. She has taken that earned wisdom from her launch and growth and is now helping others by founding Parfaire Consulting this year with her sister, Mimi Striplin. They serve other entrepreneurs looking to find joy while also growing their businesses to greater heights. She was tired of being the only one in the room that looked like her and became more and more aware of the wealth gap between women of color and their white counterparts in those rooms. Mimi's holistic lifestyle approach to her work provides invaluable clarity, business acumen, and provides tailored support to fill in the gap where clients are and where they want to be. She's also the youngest of 8 siblings. I think that's important to note. And personally, I think that's a big part of her joy-filled and grace-giving personality. Welcome her to the podcast with me. And she is walking sunshine, so you're about to get blessed. It's so good to have you.
Thank you for having me, Candice.
So I love the Tiny Tassel story because we met right back when you were kind of getting started.
Yes.
And you were literally by hand cranking out these tassel earrings and bracelets and all these things and finding ways to expand on a niche item that you just loved. So can you talk a little bit about the story of where you started and where you are now?
Yeah, I started back in 2015. I was a recent graduate from the College of Charleston and took the first job I was offered in retail management. Did not negotiate a salary, benefits, anything, just naively said, it's a job. Great. I get to stay in Charleston.
A paycheck.
Very shortly after, I realized I was underpaid, undervalued, and struggling to make ends meet. And so from that, I created this business that first I thought would just make a little extra money on the side, be something that is joyful and fun and colorful. And I quickly realized it could become so much more.
Yeah.
And so after working my full-time job for about 2 years and building the business at the same time, I finally left that full-time job at the end of 2016, and the Tiny Tassel was growing. I was wholesaling my products to a local shop here, and it had become so much more than I could ever imagine. And what started as just a pair of hot pink tassel earrings today is a collection of clothing designed by my mom, jewelry still handmade by our team, and we work with other female founders and support Black-owned businesses to carry their products and highlight them.
That's so amazing. You said something interesting that I didn't have mapped out. So what I want to ask is you started with one product.
Mm-hmm.
And I find this tension come up a lot when someone starts with product versus personal service.
Mm-hmm.
They start with a product and there's this tension of, is this a product or is this its own business?
Yeah.
And is this something I sell to someone else? Is this something I only wholesale and try to get residual on? Is this something I collect royalties on, or do I develop?
Yeah.
What was that journey like for you?
There was no structure or anything. I had no clue. I didn't know what I was doing. I just had retail experience. So at the end of the day, I think I knew I could sell something.
Yeah.
And I was working in menswear at the time, selling very high-end clothing and accessories, and thought, if I can sell this stuff, I can sell anything. And it came true. And from that, I do look back on the beginning of the journey and think, wow, I wish that I would have had the knowledge or listened to a podcast or read any type of business book, because I had no business background.
Yeah.
And I wish that I could have seen the vision sooner. But I'm so grateful at how it all just played out. And it was really from my customers. They kept asking like, okay, I bought the earrings, I want another color, or I bought the earrings, I want a matching bracelet. And so that's where the evolution started to begin. And I'm so grateful that I was humble enough to listen to them, and at times a little too much listening from customers where I see pictures on Facebook pop up and I'm like, did I make that? Why did I make that thing? And remember, like, a specific customer was like, will you please make this like tie-dye tassel that I saw on Pinterest? And I was just like, sure, it's money. Like, I'll make it. And through that, I learned very quickly how to how to kind of focus and hone in on the products that I did want to sell, and how to really create a brand and not just have products.
Oh, yeah, that's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
How do you decide what you add to the mix these days? Now that you're in the game and have all these different lines, because when you walk into Mimi's shop, it's literally, first of all, it's like a rainbow explosion. It's fantastic.
Literally a rainbow explosion.
But also you've gone into home decor, party and gift, like you've got the whole gamut in there. So how do you decide what to add and what not to add? Because someone listening is like, I want to be everything to everyone, but where do I say no?
So it's still rooted in what I love and what brings me joy. And our storefront and our online shop is filled with that. I think if anyone who knew me looked at it, they're like, okay, she would wear that, or she would gift that, she would buy that. And at one point we got away from that and we were selling things that were a bit more trendy, and we just needed cash in the door. And that was very real. But we've gotten back to what products really have a story to tell. What is our customer going to connect to? What do we genuinely love? Like, what does our team get excited about when we share it? Like, this new design is coming. What are they like? Can't wait to have it in their own hands. And so it's a little more structured, but we still have freedom in what we're bringing in. And I think that's the beauty of being an entrepreneur.
That's so great. You even just describing the product with your team, like, what do they get excited about? There's a lot focused on joy, even in the way you talk about your business and how you like to weave that through everything you do. Why is that important to you?
It's so important to me because if I can't find joy in every day, then I think I'm not aligned with what I'm doing. And I'm either not aligned or I'm not present, which means I'm not able to just be aware of all the joy that's around me, whether I'm having the crappiest day or the best day. And it's so interesting to me looking back on my journey, because there were definitely times where I was like, stop saying joy. Like, you're so annoying. And it was mostly in 2020 to 2021, our customers all of a sudden were like hooked on this thing of like, this brand is so joyful. They're spreading so much joy. And I was in my little apartment, had just left this business partnership, like pretty bitter, in my apartment building this business again. And I was just like, why are they saying this? They don't know the real me right now. Like, I'm so the opposite of joy. And the products were speaking for me. And I didn't know how much I needed that at the time. Like, I didn't know how much I needed to be surrounded by the rainbow of cute, pretty things to uplift my spirit at the time. Aww. And I look back and I'm so grateful that we were able to like joke about it at times, but then fully lean into it. And it's become our thing. Like, we're known as this brand to spread joy. And if anyone would have told me that 8 years ago, I probably would have like laughed a little bit and been like, joy, like LOL, that's not a business model. And now I'm like, no, that is what we are rooted in. And our team knows that. It's one of our company missions, our values, and we're really rooted in it now.
Can I talk about like 8 years ago when you were first starting to wrestle with this?
Yeah.
We were in a Bible study together and you were talking about how you were growing in your faith and wanting to connect with God more, and also feeling conviction of, is my business and profitability a ministry if I'm not like working at a church or a vocational pastor or those kinds of things? And I remember distinctly you walking in one night and going, it's joy. Joy's my ministry. And it was just this beautiful moment that now you've woven through everything you do. And it's really cool to see. But what would you say to someone who feels like maybe they shouldn't have the profitability or the success that they're starting to see, or they feel convicted about, marketing to themselves. Cause that's always a tension I feel like for some reason as Christians we struggle with.
Yeah.
But he gives us that.
He totally gives it to us. And I think it's almost a disservice or like a slap in the face to him if we're like, no, we're going to like fakely, humbly stay over here and like not share it. Because when we're not sharing our gifts and like leaning into it, then that's just telling God that we know better than him. And that's not true.
Yeah.
And there were seasons where I did that and I was just like, I know better. This is what works. And it totally did not work. And I needed to grow through that and learn through that. And for anyone out there just wondering, like, how does my work or how does my life glorify God and how do people see it? I would just say if you're doing something that you feel is in alignment and truly making the world a better place, like keep at it. And it may not look like it right now, but you're going to look back a month from now, a year from now and think, okay, wow, I was walking in my purpose and I didn't even know it.
That's so good. That is amazing. Thank you for sharing that. You mentioned having gone through kind of like the bitter season.
Mm-hmm.
You and I both have gone through some interesting partnership transitions.
Yes.
And I think we both learned a lot in those seasons. But I personally used to think going into my first business partnership that it was like a marriage, like we were going to be together forever on the same playing field, running down the path, holding hands forever, just being super successful. And I thought it would work that way forever until it didn't.
Yeah.
And now I've had several business partnerships and not all of them have been dramatic experiences, but I know personally I've learned that it's just like anything else in your work. There are transitional seasons.
Yes.
So can you share a little bit about what you learned through those seasons? Because you and I have definitely walked that out.
Absolutely. Gosh. I think about that season of my life and I was 22 years old and joined this partnership kind of naively, just with this really sunny outlook on life, thinking, okay, we're both going to go in. I'm a hard worker. She's going to be a hard worker. And we weren't aligned in our work ethics, our just business goals, our life goals. And I don't think I asked enough questions. And I look back at that time in my life where I was not rooted in confidence to like show up as myself authentically and ask the questions that I needed the answers to.
Oh, that's good.
And didn't even know what questions to ask. I remember my dad saying like, what do you know about her? What do you know about her family? What do you know about her like hometown? And I was like, who cares? It doesn't relate to this. And now, like, walking through that, I'm sure my dad wanted to be like, I told you so many times, and he never did, which I'm so grateful for that. But I did tell him afterwards how it all played out. I was like, I should have asked about her hometown. I should have asked about her family. I would have known something. And it really just came down to like us not being aligned in just greater life calling, I think, or greater life mission. And I am so grateful for the season because I truly learned so much. And a lot of it, I learned that I needed boundaries and I needed to learn how to communicate my boundaries because I didn't know that before. And there's a big difference between having boundaries and communicating them and enforcing them.
That's good.
And I think we all, for a long time, live on the like, we have boundaries, especially now that it's such a buzzword, and we're not actually enforcing them or communicating them. And I was similar to you in walking into the partnership, but a bit different because I never thought like, we're going to be besties, it's going to be a marriage. But I got that from her side. And I've been working on this even 8 years later, like this almost detachment that I have. Even when I had a dog, I was like, I'm not a dog mom. I just have a dog who like lives with me that I love.
Same. I'm not a dog mom either.
And like when with my business, so many people have been like, it's like your child, like you don't have real life kids yet. And like, this is your baby. And I'm like, it's a business. It's not my baby. Like I can separate the two and I'm still working on it because I don't know if it's healthy or not or whatever. But with the partnership, when it did come to its end, it was like leaving a marriage that I didn't even really know I was married to.
Yeah.
And the transition out of that was very quiet in a way that I didn't want to like ruffle any more feathers. And it was the summer of 2020. So there were just so many things going on in our world that I was like, if I can leave this quietly, I'm okay. And such a testimony to that time. I was leaving that partnership. It took me about 6 months to leave the partnership with like lawyers involved. I'd never worked with a lawyer, never even had a lawyer's phone number in my cell phone. And on my 28th birthday, I remember emailing him saying, I just want to be done. I'm so tired. I don't want to take this into a new year. And he emails back as a good lawyer should and was like, that is not a smart decision. Like, what are you talking about? And I was like, the money will come. Like, I don't need a buyout. I want to just leave this fight and like move on and have peace of mind. And within minutes, the Tiny Tassel was featured on the Today Show. And we made in like a 2-minute television segment, the sales from that was like double the amount of the buyout that I should have received from walking away from that business. And it was obviously God being like, girl, I told you to just let go of this and like move on. And it took all of that for me to see it. And from there, it was not sunshine and rainbows, but that was just such a turning point in my perspective and my faith and my trust in God.
That gave me chills. So it is hard when you're letting go of something. What do you, now here's the cool thing though. You're sitting here as someone who is launching new enterprises and doing it, going into partnerships.
Yeah.
You're sitting here not as someone saying, I don't touch partners anymore.
Yes.
And I think that is something that we tend to do. And we can say we separate and do those things, but we will build those walls in any type of relationship.
Absolutely.
And say, this is the boundary going forward. How do you walk that out? And now your partnerships are even with family and some of your products and business ventures. So how do you walk that out now, that faith? And I know it sounds like God was really clear about what you needed to do next in that scenario. So I'm sure that's a big part of it. But how do you go into those things now?
I go into them now with a different perspective where I'm never holding it so tightly.
Yeah.
Like anything in my life. Like I love the things that I've been able to work hard and like the physical things that I have, but I'm still very aware of like never holding these things so tightly because this is all temporary. Like this is not our forever place that we're going to be. And I have to think of every business decision, partnership, new hire, everything from that perspective, even new friendships, because I found that when I hold it too tightly, it's becoming an idol in my life that is actually missing the mark. And these new partnerships with my sister, with my mom working with us, with these other brands that we work with, they've been so beautiful because it's not just what is this going to do for me? How is this going to move me forward? But it's how is it going to move us collectively forward? Or how is it going to move them forward? I've done many partnerships where it's not benefited me financially in any way from a business standpoint, but I'm so filled up and like overflowing with joy that I've gotten to work with these other businesses and support these other entrepreneurs and tell their story. And there was a time where I was like, I will never be in another partnership until I'm like married. And I don't even know if I want to be married. And still to this day, I'm not, but it's a different story. But I have totally like softened that part of my heart and my mind and had to go to God with that to be like, okay, partnerships can be good. They can be beautiful. And I'm so grateful that I haven't just cut them off completely because that would be a total disservice.
And looking back on the way the one you went through, the first one, ended, do you look back now and see that God taught you some things or developed some things in it? Or what do you see looking back now? Now that you're far enough away.
Yes. And I always say like, now that the wound is like healed. Yeah. And there were times where I was like, I would come on a podcast or I would even have a conversation with a friend and I'm like, don't talk to me about it. I'm not in a place to talk about it. I'm still bitter or angry. And I learned so much of just how and where to put my energy. Like there were many times where I was like focused on the wrong things or putting too much emphasis on some things and not the others, where I look back now and God was just kind of like, okay, I'm going to let you do this, but like, I'll be here.
Yeah.
Like, I'll be here waiting when you need this. And just learning really the way that I can show up now so authentically as myself and not try to like fit in with other people or other things or try to make my business fit in with other people and things. It taught me all of that as a whole to be able to show up truly as myself and not hide my thoughts, my feelings, my needs, because a lot of that was happening in the partnership where I just kind of thought that I had to put on a strong face to like have a successful business.
Sure. I think I struggled with that a lot early on in my partnerships. And then I would find myself dissatisfied or stressed out about the conversations, but I wasn't vocal. So I was carrying it all. The other party wasn't carrying any of it. And I would find myself, I remember towards the end of one partnership, many of them have ended well, by the way. I feel the need to say that. Sometimes they're just for a season.
Yeah.
But one partnership, I remember going into a regular status meeting and I started to get like anxious before every one of those meetings. And it was like a trend, but I was carrying all the weight and not talking about it.
Yeah.
So that is something that now I lead with the difficult thing because I know if I let myself get even 5 minutes into a conversation without starting with the hardest part, it won't come up.
Yeah.
I won't do it.
And we're human. We get distracted by other things, or we just like the voices in our head downplay it and tell us like it's not that big of a deal or it's not the right time or place to have the conversation. And I think it's so important to just understand that we don't have to carry it all.
Yeah.
And I think back then I was totally carrying like a whole business on my shoulders and had no clue what I was really doing. And now I'm like, to live so much lighter there's so much freedom in that.
Yeah, you're kind of leaning into the iron sharpens iron piece.
Yeah.
And I'm in a working relationship now that's definitely that. I have several, but the difference in that and then being the one that's like, I can't bring up anything challenging, but make sure your working relationships and your partnerships are always started that way.
Yes.
Like start giving each other hard stuff and make sure you can, because then when it's actually hard, you've already have that candor with each other.
Yes, absolutely. And I think that's why my partnership with my sister and with my mom has been able to work. A ton of people say like, how do you work with your family? How? I could never do it. And I probably said I could never do it at some point, but here we are and we have this successful business. And my sister and my mom are very, very clear. They're like, this is not my business. I just work here. I clock in and out. And I love that energy from them.
Yeah.
And there are totally some times where we are able to work even better together because we're challenging each other or we're like checking each other and we're like, ma'am, you don't speak to someone like that or whatever it is, or like you have a bad attitude, turn around and like go home. And a lot of times that's me. And I have to like be told like, you need to go take a nap, you need to go eat lunch, whatever. And I think that's the beauty that our team sees though. Like we're not showing up as this perfect put together like family that's working together. Like we're showing up. And the other day we get on our team meeting and I was like, Aiko and I are in a fight and we weren't really, but we just had a disagreement over a candle warmer that we were buying for the store.
This is so great.
I knew it needed to be pink, but for some reason she did not know that it needed to be pink. And the conversation was like so millennial. Like I was like, do you not get the vibe of the store? And she's on the other hand coming from her corporate background and is like, well, do you need to micromanage everything? And I was like, okay, all right. But it needs to be pink, and like could not get off of it. So fast forward, we have this cute pink candle warmer in the store, and it's pretty great. And it was just funny because our team got to see that because they're like, you're real people.
Yeah.
They don't have to show up with this facade on. Because we have everyone from like 22-year-olds to 34-year-olds on our team and like so many different seasons of lives on our team right now that I just remember showing up to my first job and like thinking I needed to like be polished and like perfect.
Oh, yeah.
And we're like, no, show up how you need to show up. Like if you're not feeling well, don't come to work. Like all of these things that I wish I would have had back then.
That's such a great example of just building candor with your team, the vulnerability piece of showing it.
Yes.
Showing it in healthy ways, not like throwing things at each other.
Exactly.
You quoted your favorite scripture as being John 10:10, which is a hefty one to come in with. I love it. But for you being joy, I don't think everybody would naturally lean into like what this scripture is. So I'm going to read it. If you don't know it off the top of your head, don't feel bad. It's okay. John 10:10 says, "The thief comes only to steal and kill and destroy. I have come that they may have life and have it to the full." Talk about it.
Yeah. So I think a lot of times in my life, I only heard the first part of the verse quoted.
I think a lot of us do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And two of my friends recently wrote about this either in their emails or on a podcast or in a Bible study. And it's just stood out to me this fall. Caroline Lunny and Alexandra Hoover, they're both incredible women.
Oh, yeah.
And their faith is so beautiful to just like witness and see. But I was reading the scripture and both of them kind of hinted on like, if God is so for us, then why are we living as these like women in society who are making ourselves smaller, who are not communicating our boundaries, who are just kind of living halfway awake and kind of looking back on life being like, I wish I would have done more, or I wish I would have like let this go. Yeah. And I've had to grow in that space so much this year of just like, okay, God, I'm here just like with my hands out, like throwing caution to the wind because you give me so much freedom to like live a light and joyful life and to lean into that. And this year has been really hard from a business standpoint for us. And there have been times where I could have totally like held so tightly and been like, well, we need to do this and that and that. And instead I went home and I sat on my couch and just did a crossword search and like let it be light. And there's so many times that I have to remind myself and even remind my team and our customers, like, this is all just joy and fun and cute earrings, and have to remind myself to live lightly because God tells us like, we don't have to carry it all. We don't have to be in control of everything. Sure. And I think when I finally started to genuinely live that out this year, my life changed for the better. And I think everyone around me has seen that even when I wasn't seeing it yet. And they were like, oh, your life is like this and that. And I'd be like, no, it's just the internet. I'm just sharing fun things on the internet. Like, it's fine. And they were like, no, it actually is encouraging to see it because you're showing up from this place of like working hard, but working smart and resting and really trusting God in your faith. And that to me has been so beautiful to share with the world. And I hope that I am just bringing more people to the kingdom by creating beautiful products at the store or sharing about a bike ride that I took or a nap that I took or a book that I'm reading. Because I think that we can take life too seriously sometimes. And then we look up and years have passed and you're like, what happened? Where did it go?
That's so true. And now you're trying to work with other startups and entrepreneurs to teach them the same ways to live. You have Parfaire Consulting. Yes. And this is exciting because this is a this year launch for you.
Yes.
And you and Aiko are doing this together, your sister.
Yes.
Tell us all about it.
So Parfaire is the word in French. It's the root for perfect. And I think we have always had a negative connotation to like perfection and being perfect and having the perfect business, the perfect words, all of that. And so we really wanted to take that into our own hands and say, let's create what perfect means for you. Like, what does the perfect day in your life feel like? What does the perfect day in your business look like? And really taking that back into our own hands to say, like, we don't compare ourselves to others and get in this like mindset of defeat because we're not at the same level as another business. And perfect may look like taking a day off because you don't feel your best and trusting in the foundation that you're building with God and your business, that it's going to be there tomorrow when you come back to work. And that's something early on that I did not trust in. I just kept like plowing through and kept working, like head down, working through it. And we have just been so overwhelmed with support. And this has been something like over a year in the making that, just like you said, as I was walking in this morning, you were like, there's so many podcasts, there's so many consultants. And I felt the same way. I was like, what do I have to add to this?
Yeah.
And I just didn't want to add more noise to all the noise out there.
Same.
And I got to a point where I was kind of fed up because I kept seeing business owners struggling and asking for help or not being able to access the help. And we see these barriers being made and being kept in place. And I see it a lot personally with Black women and women of color who are entrepreneurs. And so many of them have asked me, like, how did you do it? Like, how did you open a store downtown? And sometimes I'm just like, God, because I don't know. And other times I'm like, wait a minute, God, but also like this strategy that we've built. And that's the part that we want to share with the world, because we don't want to be the only ones. Like, I would love to be on a street full of Black-owned businesses where we can all support each other, Asian-owned businesses, and just be able to really lift each other up. And I would love to see that in my lifetime here in Charleston, South Carolina.
Absolutely.
And if that means me opening multiple businesses to support other brands, then I am willing to do that. And with Parfaire, it's not just business coaching where we're talking at you. Like, we really want to bridge the gap between the coaching and the implementation. So there are some sessions where we are like, pull out your laptop, let's write these drafts, let's call up your accountant right now, let's do these things. And on Aiko's side, she is the accountant doing the bookkeeping, the payroll, the management services, the financial coaching. And so many people have told us, like, no one's ever taken that step of being like, but wait, let's do it together.
Yeah.
Because we're always told, like, you're not going to have your hand held. You're not going to have it done for you. And we're like, actually, we have the capacity to do it for you and with you right now, as long as you want to really put in the work to grow and to grow your mindset and your business.
Well, that's why I talk about fixing when I go into a business that's struggling and not struggling on a downturn, but they're growing so much. They've got problems. And I can't simply do consulting where we have a meeting about a couple things and I walk away, because there's so much observation required. And I'm learning, I don't know about you, I'm learning that everybody has a different hang up, a different pain and fear point.
Yes.
And the fear point is usually where they seem to struggle the most because they don't want to talk about it or deal with it.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the thing I'm learning. But that's interesting that you said that, because I feel the same way. I'm like, I can't give you a worksheet and walk away. Like, I can give you a couple of tools, but we're going to need to talk about it.
Yeah. And just about every client that's come to us has said, I have this business problem. And then we're 5 minutes into our session and I'm like, I don't say it outright to them yet.
Yeah.
But by the end of the session, I'm like, it's your mindset around this thing, whether you're
so good.
The fear or the comparison or the doubt or the self-worth or whatever it is. Like, we're actually going to work on that today. And they might not know it until the end of the session, but that is usually the thing holding a business owner back. Like, we all typically, for the most part, have the tools or have Google to find the tools. And it's really the mindset that holds us back from like being in that decision making, the risk taking, to the actual action steps of like getting the stuff done.
That's so good. That's so good. How did you decide that Parfaire was more than just like advice for colleagues over lunches? How did you decide it was time?
Yeah, there was no capacity over the last few years in my brain to do it over lunch and for funsies. And for a long time, I would do it. Like, my best of best friends and probably some strangers that did not ask for business advice got it from me over the last few years. And
usually in feedback emails,
or I'm like in Trader Joe's overhearing something and being like, can I just, excuse me? Hi. Can I talk to you for a moment? And they're like, who is this girl? Like, no, you don't talk to me. But it's turned into these beautiful moments where I realized I kept saying, I don't have the capacity. Like, I cannot have my brain picked over coffee because number one, I don't like coffee. So don't invite me for coffee. And number
It makes me so sad about you. It's like the one thing about you. I'm like, Mimi.
I know. I will have my tea. I'll have a matcha. I'll have a tea with you.
You're just like higher brow than me when it comes to beverages, I think is what it is.
I don't know. But I kept making this excuse that I see it now as an excuse that I was making because I was still holding on so tightly to different parts of the tiny tassel where I wouldn't release the control.
Things that you needed to release from that box to someone else.
Exactly. In order to make space to have the capacity to coach and consult and like really show up presently. And with that, like we did say, okay, this is not something we can just do outright for free right now because we want to invest in this and build it to be a resource of knowledge and tools for our clients. And there are some options where we have like a sliding scale available for some, and we have taken on just pro bono clients because when we see the potential there and the need there, we can't turn it away. Yeah. And it's been really beautiful because with the just intention behind it that we've come with and the intention from the clients, we have seen so much progress in their businesses and in their lives where they're not just like, oh, we made this much money. They're like, my life has changed. Like I've gotten time back with my family. I have peace of mind. I don't have anxiety as much anymore. Or I feel great waking up to start my day instead of feeling this like cloud over me like I was before. Yeah. And that's made it all so worth it.
That's so good. That's so good. What are your goals for the coming year?
Ooh, this is something that I used to never have goals because I was just working in survival mode.
Sure. And
I would say like I was taught to just like, you just do what you need to do and get it done, and lived like that for so long. And it really wasn't until, let's say, last year and this year that I started to write down goals. And one of my goals is to continue truly resting like consistently and finding the joy every day and continuing to grow our team at the Tiny Tassel and to pour into more clients with Parfaire. And I've purposely not put numbers on it because this last year, 2022, I got so fixated on the numbers that we needed to reach that they were just becoming idols in my life, and that they were taking away the beauty of the things that we were doing as a business.
That's such a great perspective because I think we all focus on the numbers.
Yeah.
And we're building.
We say like your business, you have to focus on the numbers. And this is in no way saying that I'm completely ignoring them and not looking at them.
I mean, be smart about it.
Yes, be smart about it. And I have now like given my sister, because she is our CFO, I'm like, you handle the finance numbers and we have a weekly meeting and discuss them, versus before it was like me checking it 2 to 3 times a day unnecessarily. But that was like this control, like having to know what was going on, not fully trusting and having faith in like the foundation and the team that we built was like able to get the work done.
Yeah.
And so it feels so much better now to have these goals in mind and continue building a team that's empowering and that's really special and beautiful, and building a life for myself that is joyful and that allows for margin and peace. And that's really my goal. Sometimes I'm like, am I just like a 70-year-old lady in my life, like living this like very quiet, slow life? But then now my friends and like the internet, I don't know if you've seen all the hashtags where it's like slow life.
Slow life, yeah.
And for a minute this summer, I was like, y'all are so annoying. We've like been trying to live this life over here. But then I was like, no, wait a minute. I actually love this for everyone because I want them to live this too.
Sure.
So it's special to be able to be this early in my life and have like realized part of this.
Yeah.
But I'll still be learning and changing things and evolving over the next year.
Yeah, that's awesome. Now, if someone wants to connect with Parfaire, who do you like to work with most? What's your favorite type of client? And how do they connect with you?
Okay, so we have quite a few different types of clients right now.
Okay.
All of them are female entrepreneurs, which does not have to be the case.
Yeah.
You can come to us, whoever you are, and we are equipped to help you in your business.
Do you find that you've naturally had certain people come to you? Because I definitely, for some reason, for me, I work with mostly men.
Yeah, that's interesting.
I know.
So we have had retailers come to us. We've had service-based clients come to us, and some are in Charleston, some are not. But it's really been these women who are like, I am run down and I want my life back. And like they're able to see that we have been able to transition from that season to this new place of like having peace of mind, having the time to rest. And they are just like wanting that and want to grow their business.
They want a piece of the action they see in you. They're like, I want that. I want that, Mimi.
And I think it's so cool that I get to be like this testimony of that.
Yeah.
Because if someone told me a year ago, I would have been like, what are you talking about? Like, I've got work to do. and now I'm like, no, I actually like want someone else to do the work. And not saying that I'm just like lounging around all day, but I want to empower others to like on our team to fully own their roles and do their jobs without me micromanaging them, without me like coming in and being like, hey, are you going to do this part too? Because they don't need that.
Right.
And these people that we work with, these entrepreneurs have been so incredible because they're either just starting out. Some of them are years in. I have a client who's 20 years into her business.
Wow.
And she is just going through this transition of finally taking her business full time after all of these years.
She gets points for dedication.
Yes. And she's always put it on the back burner and kind of look to something else for more security or stability. And she's like, I finally feel like I can have full faith in what I've built and do this. And I think it's so beautiful to work with all of these clients because they're teaching us stuff too.
Oh, Mimi, it's been so great having you. Thank you for sharing all that. You talked about forgiveness and boundaries a lot. I want to, in the show notes, we'll have a couple of tools. There's a great book by Havilah Cunnington called I Do Boundaries. And then The Art of Forgiving by Smedes is great. And he talks about forgiveness, but keeping boundaries. I think it's a really important section. So I'll put both of those in there because both of those are amazing if that's something you're working through. And I think in business, there's no way you don't come to a season on the work side that you have to work through it if it hasn't happened in your personal life. So thank you so much for your candor and honesty and just for allowing God to use your story all over the place. It was great having you.
Thank you for having me, Candice. This was incredible.
This was so incredible.